Welcome back, everybody. Michael Regan here, ready to revisit my Rush collection, Volume 2. Yesterday, I recorded my Volume 1, and that was my first 10 in the collection. Today, I've got my next 9. And out of those 19 albums, I broke them up into 2 volumes because that just seemed like a really long version of this if I tried to do it all in one sitting. So, by definition, you've already seen my least favorite Rush album up to the midway point, and now we're ready to pick up at the midway point and walk through the top 9. These are my favorite Rush albums, and I can tell you we're already into a period of my Rush collection where I love all of these CDs and would listen to any of them top to bottom. But I had to pick a batting order, so I did my best to pick them in the order that I would grab them off the shelf today. Not necessarily where they would have been when they came out, or at different points, in my time of listening to Rush over the last 40 years. This is where I find them today. So when I grab these off the shelf, this is the order that I see them, and hopefully you'll have some fun with it. And the great thing about this is you might disagree with my order, and I'd love to see your comments below, because that's always something I love comparing is how we stack up our favorite bands. So let's get started with the next up on my list. Again, here we are in Volume 2. And I'm going to bring you Vapor Trails. Now, Vapor Trails was originally released back in 2002, I believe. But this, as you'll notice, if you can see in there, is the 2013 remixed version. Often you're going to get a remastered version from your bands over time, but this is an actual remix. And for those of you that remixed, remastered, potato, it means that this album sounds completely different. Not just boosted and equalized in some way, but remixed. Different textures and tones all together from the soundboard tapes themselves. So a really interesting remix. I love this one. It was a major improvement, in my opinion, over the original release. So Vapor Trails is up first in today's Volume 2 list. Next, I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning of Neil Peart. His first full album with the band was Fly By Night, and wow, this is still a great listen. I mean, certainly going back to 1975, sonically, it sounds like the mid-70s. It's back when the band had a bit more of a Zeppelin influence in their sound, but some amazing rock songs on this record, and it really was a great introduction to the trio that became really the version of Rush that everybody refers to for the rest of their career. So you get it there. Again, as I showed you yesterday, this is the album style version, so you get the full sleeve there. I do love that. That makes the memories of going back and visiting this is like going back to your old albums. Anthem is probably the standout song on here for me, and the title track, Fly By Night, of course, and By Tour and the Snow Dog, which was a great track in concert in the 70s. A lot of they would do back and forth. Seems goofy now, but it was a lot of fun then. All right, as long as we're in the 70s, I'm going to say just ahead of that particular release is the original release from Rush, the self-titled album from 1974. And this one features John Rutsey, who was the original drummer, just in case you think I'm making that up. There you go. No Neil Peart in the band at that time. That was Rutsey on Working Man, Finding My Way, and some of the great songs that were on here, In the Mood. These were the original Rush tracks that got picked up by a Cleveland radio station, I believe it was, who broke the band in America. And then by the time they broke there, I think Chicago might have been their next market, and they worked their way through that upper Midwest, Detroit. And by the time the momentum got going in the mid-70s, they started being an opening act on a lot of big rock tours in the mid-70s. But, go back and re-listen to this, if for no other reason, for Working Man. I mean, it is a concert classic all the way through their career, the original Rush release. All right, next up, I'm going to jump into the 80s. This was the beginning of what I call my transition from 70s Rush into high school era Rush, but just before high school was Signals. So this carried me from kind of junior high into high school, and this was really the sound of Rush stepping into the 80s. They had already released, of course, another album in the 80s at that point, two to be exact. But this was really more the sound of the 80s by this time. So New World Man stands out. Again, you get the full album style. Love, 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 love that. And the subdivision map for the song Subdivisions. Probably Chemistry, The Weapon, New World Man, all great tracks on this record. I love going back and listening to Signals. One of my favorites. All right, this one's going to be the top of somebody's list. I know it. And it could be the top of mine. I wouldn't be bummed out if it was, but it got a ton of spins on my player over the last 30, 40 years, so I don't grab it as often, but it is the epic 2112. Now, this is Rush during their Goofy Robe era. Oh, you don't remember that era? It looked like that. Goofy. But wow, was this a great record. And I know the epic 2112 song itself is well known, played often in concert, but crank into Passage to Bangkok, The Twilight Zone, Tears, and one of my favorite Rush songs ever, Something for Nothing. I love 2112. It's definitely up here for a reason, but not quite cracking my top 4. Now here we go. I'm going to go into my top 4 and acknowledge that a couple of these records have been re-released, a 40th anniversary reissue, and I'm a huge fan of it simply for the packaging. I love the original records, but you're going to see some different packaging if you didn't go out and buy these already. So first up in that final 4, A Farewell to Kings. Look how cool that album art is. They did such a great job, and this is one of those that's just, bursting with discs. I mean, you've just got all kinds of music and DVD, video baked into here, all of the notes that you could ever want on the making of this album. This is really Rush in their prog rock heyday. I mean, I don't know if they get any better as a progressive rock band than A Farewell to Kings. So that is going to be the record that includes, of course, Closer to the Heart, Cinderella Man, and the classic Xanadu. So check that one out if you don't have it already. It is a bona fide classic. That's awesome. That was my sister FaceTiming me. I'm not going to stop here because next up we're in the top 3 and we get to hit Hemispheres. Oh my goodness. This is an epic release from Rush. I mean, the original album has the full suite of Hemispheres on it, but then maybe the B-side, and by the way, again, full breakout album style with the double discs. But when you break this album out into the bottom half of the record and you get Circumstances, The Trees, and the epic La Villa Strangiato, holy smokes. I dare you to pull that one out of your CD player. It is awesome. All right, guys, we're down to the final 2, and I lamented over how I was going to pick these, but I'm going to just land pretty firmly on the fact that they're both CDs that have been with me really from the beginning of my introduction to Rush, and they're still in my top 2, so I've never grown tired of these 2. You won't be surprised by either one. If you've been a Rush fan, you've already figured out. You're just asking which is 1 and which is 2. Well, I'm going to bring you Moving Pictures in my number 2 slot. Tom Sawyer, Red Barchetta, YYZ, The Camera Eye, Witch Hunt, and Vital Signs. This record got nonstop play in my cassette player back when that was happening in high school. This particular edition, they haven't re-released in the 40th year yet. That's coming up. But I've got the solid gold version. This one was the 24-karat original master recording. It is one of my favorites. It's called an Ultra Disc. I have a few of these in my collection, and they just sound fantastic. I really can't say enough about Moving Pictures, and most of you that are Rush fans know a lot about it because it's a lot of people's favorite Rush record. For me, top of the slot, you get the best. You get the best. So when Rush came out with Permanent Waves, and this is the original release, they have pre-ordered my 40th anniversary. It hasn't arrived yet. When we first got this record, I mean, The Spirit of the Radio came out, and it was rock and roll Rush at the pinnacle. Then you kicked into Free Will and Jacob's Ladder, and then you had songs like Different Strings and Natural Science. My gosh, this is Rush recording at Le Studio in Montreal, or in Quebec, I guess, not in Montreal, somewhere in Quebec, uh, during the heyday. Like they would just camp out at this cool studio in the woods in Canada and crank out classics like Permanent Waves. My all-time favorite Rush record. So there you go, guys. All 19 of my favorite discs. Number one slot, of course, Permanent Waves. You heard it here. Moving Pictures at number 2. Still love Hemispheres. What an amazing record. Check it out. A Farewell to Kings at number 4, followed by 2112, a prog rock epic record. Jump to the 80s, and you get Signals, a beauty. The original release, the self-titled Rush, followed by Fly By Night, another classic, and the first record featuring Neil Peart. And last in this volume is Vapor Trails, a record that I just love rocking out to, came way later in their career and was a welcome return to form. So folks, that's my entire collection of Rush, all 19 records. As you heard yesterday, if you watched volume 1, including Presto, the mystery disc that I can't seem to find anymore. I've reordered it on Amazon, and believe me, it's back in the collection soon. So if you have any thoughts or comments, I'd love to read them below. If you're enjoying these, let me know. If you'd like to see some other bands, it may be a collection that I've got right over here, and I'd love to review them as well. And I hope you're having fun with this. This is a fun way for me to spend some downtime during this stay-at-home season. So I hope you're staying healthy out there, and go enjoy yourself some Rush tonight.